Audio 1, book name Health Tips from the Vedas. A compilation of articles from Akhand Jyoti. Editors Dr. Pranav Pandya and Sri Shambhudas. Yoga and Ayurveda. The world, at the peak of scientific and technological advancement, is not able to reach the much sought for goal of progress, which is happiness. Even the crucial front of healthcare is facing adversities and challenges without any definite support. Increasing health hazards and stresses on the one hand, and inability of single-track reductionist approaches of modern medical science on the other have made it necessary to investigate holistic health management incorporating complementary therapies. Yoga and the Vedic medical science, Ayurveda show us the silver line of hope in resolving the crisis. This book aims to introduce the readers with practical guidelines from Ayurveda to enable them enjoy healthier and happier life by simple efforts. Both yoga and Ayurveda are scientific disciplines of Vedic knowledge revealed for the welfare of mankind and hence of every entity in nature. While yoga is a science of consciousness, Ayurveda is a science of its physical manifestation in life forms. The principles and theories of yoga emanate from the deeper science of soul, spirit and supreme consciousness. Ayurveda deals with the Vedic medical science of diagnostics, therapeutics and maintenance of total health. Yoga focuses on refinement and evolution of the individual self and presents a comprehensive science of sadhana practices for this purpose. Healthy and hearty state of mind-body system is the major focus of Ayurveda. Sound health and purity of the body and mind is a prerequisite for yoga sadhana practices, and therefore yoga also encompasses the methods of maintenance and enhancement of mental and physical vigor by vital spiritual energy. Thus, these two Vedic sciences share common objectives and are mutually complementary in some respects. Some scholars opine that yoga is an integral part of Ayurveda since its inception. According to them, yoga science seems to have been developed in order to study the mind and mental health up to the deepest depths of the inner self. This would have eventually evolved into a separate branch of Vedic sciences. Their argument is based on the implications of the ancient Ayurvedic scripture Charak Samhita. According to these descriptions in this scripture, a gist of Yoga Shastra was present in the eternal knowledge of Ayurveda, which is a sub-Veda. However, despite this interpretation and belief, most scholars regard Ayurveda and Yoga having evolved separately in the same age and in the same country, namely in the Vedic age and in India. The Vedic sages, scientists, Rishi are revered as the founders of the principles and theories of both and also as the investigators of their practical applications. Dr. Ramharsh Singh highlights the interrelation of yoga and Ayurveda in his scholarly volume entitled Swasth Vrata Vigyan. According to him, Ayurveda is a comprehensive Vedic medical science which encompasses multiple dimensions of well-being, including the foundational pillars of the duty-bound, progressive and fulfilling life via dharma, artha, kama and moksha. In the same context, he also elaborates that yoga primarily aims at spiritual evolution of consciousness, evaluation of human self from the confined peripheries of a yoga-bound, ego-bound mortal being towards the high realms of the divine enlightenment. Ayurveda is a total science of life in the soul's wildly existence and expansion, whereas yoga is a highly specialized science pertaining to specific, namely spiritual facts of life. The incorporation of the teachings and practices of yoga and Ayurveda had been prominent in the ancient Indian society of the prehistoric times. Both the streams of invaluable of knowledge were quite advanced in the early Vedic age. The Rig Veda period, both had flourished independently. There is no scriptural descriptions of their overlap or interdependent development in the Vedic age. The focus seems to have shifted to their interdependent aspects and collective use only in the post-Vedic period. The Yajurveda mentions a great deal of attainment of ultimate knowledge by yoga sadhanas. Mental concentration and engrossment of mind all the time in deep meditation upon God are emphasized here. Ayurveda is referred in this Veda as a healing science. Certain divine medicinal plants and qualities of expert Vaidyas, devoted experts of Ayurvedic medicines, are also cited in the Yajurveda. These descriptions are also affirm the development of yoga and Ayurveda as independent and complete science in themselves. Yoga as a supreme science of ultimate spiritual accomplishments, and Ayurveda as a holistic science of healthy life and well-being. Thus, as per this Veda, there appears to be no direct association between the two despite common and implicit objective of mental and emotional purity and peace. The traditional of yoga in the Sam Veda is focused more on attainment of divine light. The teachings on yoga explain here how a yogi reaches the highest state of spiritual knowledge and self-realization by rigorous practice of yoga sadhanas. It also describes the methods of yoga trance for linkage of the inner self with the Almighty. As per the philosophy and science of yoga highlighted here, the yogis attain desired spiritual purification and potentials by different kinds of yoga sadhanas and gradually focus the scattered and diversified mental power and attention by the trance meditation to unify it with the impulse of omnipresent supreme consciousness force. Ayurveda is independently described here in the teachings of Samveda with a reference to the analysis of different herbal medicines and therapeutic effects. Plant medicines, herbs are also linked here with food grains that are essential for sustenance of vigorous life. It is further advised here to take some of these in appropriate quantities every day like other food ingredients. The Atharvaveda cites yoga as a mean of absolute salvation and success of the tap of the yogis. Is prayed for in the hymns here. The diagnostic of Ayurveda are elucidated here with the emphasis on identification and removal of the root causes of the diseases as a part of its holistic healing approach. Yoga, as it described here, is the method of uprooting all egocentric urges, vices, worries and fears of the lower false self. According to the Atharvaveda teachings, dedicated adoption of the disciplines and practices of yoga sadhana leads to controlling and prana, that is vital spiritual energy, life force and attainment of supramental knowledge by its elevation. Enlightenment of the inner self by elevated force of prana gradually helps accomplishing higher levels of sadhana and attainment of absolute knowledge of the soul. This is how a yogi reaches the ultimate unalloyed blissful state of beautifying realization of the Brahm, eternal, omnipresent supreme consciousness force and bliss. Ayurveda is dealt in great detail in Atharvaveda. In fact, Atharvaveda is also considered as the origin of this subveda. Apart from detailed description and guidelines on the philosophy and comprehensive approach of this natural science of healing, rare knowledge of many medicinal herbs is also revealed in Atharvaveda. Pyanas of these divine healing properties of several herbs are sung in its hymns. The major herbs cited are included Shyama, Rohini, Prashni, Parni, Pipali, Apmark, etc. Remarkably, this Veda also mentions the existence of germs, microbes that infect and malign air, water, body and spread several diseases. The methods of destroying them and curing the diseases by mantras are discussed in this context. This mention of mantra-based therapy indicates an intersection between yoga and Ayurveda. The post-Vedic scriptures like the Upanishads and Brahmanas that describe the independent development and applications of yoga and Ayurveda in greater detail, together with highlighting certain aspects that corresponds to their mutually supplementary nature. The philosophy and science of yoga dealt in the Upanishad takes in its sweet mind and body system as well while keeping the major focus on the sublime domains of the consciousness. In the former respect, it is concordant with the philosophy and principles of Ayurveda. In particular, the Upanishads analyze multiple dimensions of yoga and its linkage with human life at its deepest depths. Different yoga kriyas and their effects are discussed here at a great length together with the yoga sadhana. The individual self, its manifestation, in the world and allied aspects of life, and also its sublime origin together with immortality of the soul and its unification with the Brahm, all are discussed here in a logical and scientific manner. The Upanishads are indeed masterpieces of the majestic knowledge and enlightened acumen of the Vedic rishis. Ayurvedic science is also cited here in the context of gross manifestation of the individual self as a living being in the physical world. Its material, scientific aspects, philosophy, as well as techniques and modes of healing are described here, indicating the astonishing advancement of Ayurveda research and remedial procedures by that time. For example, the mention of cutting an organ of Rishi Atharvana and its replacement by that of a horse in an Upanishad signifies sufficient development and successful use of surgery and organ transplant technology in Ayurvedic developments of that time. Among all Upanishads, the Kathopanishad explains the science of yoga in minutious detail, like the methods, that is, Virechama, of cleansing the body system regularly at specific time intervals of weeks or months and before medication, essentially prescribed under Ayurveda for sustenance of good health. Yoga also lays emphasis on bodily and mental refinement and control. The yoga principles and practices of yam, niyam, and asana and pranayam fall under the category of pertaining to the physical body and external activities of mind and behavioral disciplines.